Oh, well, hello there, and welcome to this episode of the Terri Cole Show that I want to start with a question. Are you afraid or intimidated to set boundaries because you're worried that people will abandon you if you do, or get mad at you if you do? Are you afraid to tell the truth? Maybe set a limit with someone because you're afraid of what other people, how they might react to your limit? Or think about how much you people please. Do you people please to keep the peace and to avoid rejection? If you're nodding your head yes, then this episode of the Terri Cole Show is for you, because I'm talking about the common root of many of our self-abandoning behaviors, the cost of that root and that behavior, and steps that you can take to begin to overcome the fears of rejection that are basically at the base of all of this inability to set boundaries and talk true. So if you happen to be new to my YouTube channel, well, hello. Come on in and welcome. If you don't know me, my name is Terri Cole. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, a relationship expert, and the author of Boundary Boss, the Boundary Boss Workbook, and my new book, Too Much, a guide to breaking the cycle of high-functioning codependency, which you can get at hfcbook.com. So please do, if you haven't. I think you would love it. Before we get into it, if you happen to be new here, please make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit the bell icon so that you get notified every time I roll out new stuff, which is every single week, every Tuesday and every Thursday. So I wouldn't want you to miss a thing, seeing as how I do all of this stuff and it's all free and it's all for you. So I want to make sure that you are notified. I also love to acknowledge all of your questions and your comments. So I'm going to highlight this from Robert Fitzgerald 4505. And this was under the video Reparenting, What It Is, Why It Works, and How to Start. Hey, Terri, since watching your interview on the Women of Power channel, I have read Boundary Boss, love, listened to the audiobook version, love, and started the workbook, love. Thanks for all you do. You make such a difference. Well, thank you, Robert Fitzgerald 4505. I really appreciate you saying so. All right, let's move it on into today's content. So, why is it hard to set boundaries with people? Why is it difficult for us to set a limit or to tell the truth or to say no? At the base of all of this, and this is pretty much across the board if you're a human being, there's a huge fear of rejection. And that's extremely common in just human beings, right? Because if you think about it from a biological or physiological point of view, and we think back into the olden days, the cave people days, being rejected by the group would certainly mean death. In cave people days, and long after that too, we really needed community to survive much of the time. So this is sort of a baked-in fear that we have of being rejected. It really is a survival mechanism that's been around for as long as humans have been around. Another thing that can influence us having this fear of rejection or having it be more amplified is what you saw in childhood. If you came from a long line of people pleasers or a long line of people who were always placating others or walking on eggshells, then we learn that behavior. Because think about it, what does all that behavior have in common? What are we trying to avoid when we're placating someone or walking on eggshells? We're trying to avoid rejection or anger. So you might have seen that in your childhood. I definitely did in mine. But we need to look at what is the cost of living in this fear of rejection and sort of letting it run us. In my therapy practice, I would have therapy clients, and a lot of this was in the 2000s, where everyone was starting to online date and everyone was looking to get partnered. At least in my therapy practice, it seemed like I had this particular age women who were really wanting that. And I remember talking to one of my clients, and she was freaking out because someone that she was texting with seemed like they were sort of stepping backwards. And she was like, I don't know, I feel like they're going to ghost me, or I feel like they're, again, and this client had a super fear of rejection. And I said to her, listen, let's start with, do you even like him? Tell me why you like him. Let's talk about him. And after that session, we really established that she didn't even like this guy, but she was so hypersensitive to any amount of potential rejection that she was freaking out. So that's when you definitely know you're having some kind of a transference, right? Because it couldn't have been about this guy that she just started texting with, but her response was so amplified that I knew it had to be an old injury, and it was all about having a rejecting mother and a punitive father. And, we all have our backstory as to the scene of the crime, or the family of origin, as I like to call it, how it influenced the way that we relate to rejection. But I want you to think about that story. Are you so hypersensitive to rejection that you're not even being discerning about the quality of the human being who might be potentially rejecting you? I used to say this, that when I was younger, I was such a people pleaser, and I wanted everyone to like me so much that when I was in high school, if there was like another group of girls or anybody who like didn't like me, even if I didn't like them, I would be like obsessing about, but why don't they like me? Like, I'm perfectly likable. Everybody likes me. I was like my client, my eventual client, where there was something I was trying so hard to not be rejected or judged. And why? Well, if you look at my family background, I felt rejected by my father because I felt like I was born the wrong gender. I mean, listen, again, I've got my own particular story, but what we have in common is that as human beings, most of us do not want to be rejected. It does not feel good. But making decisions from this place of fear of rejection, it's not going to be, they're not going to be your best decisions, right? What ends up happening for us? Well, you become resentful from people-pleasing, from self-abandoning, from all these high-functioning codependent behaviors where we're over-functioning or over-giving or even over-feeling for other people. But eventually, as I like to say, the chickens come home to roost, so that behavior catches up with us. And we start to really feel the resentment of doing those things. Another cost of living with this fear of rejection in the front of your mind is not being authentically known. Right? Because a lot of times, to avoid rejection, we're giving sort of corrupted data about ourselves to other people. We're not telling the truth, right? Whether we like something or whether we don't like it, even if it's something small. I was showing one of my grown sons, it was a TikTok video of like these tap dancer brothers that I like. And my kid said, I've never really been into tap. I don't know. It's like not my thing, Now, his ability to just tell the truth, that's not a big deal. He wasn't saying anything bad about the fact that I liked it, but he was just telling the truth. And that let me know him more. Where so much of the time someone shows you something and we go, oh yeah, that's amazing. That's great. I'm going to start following them, even if you're not interested. So being authentically known has to be like one of your top priorities in life, because it is the thing that makes life satisfying and juicy and deepens the intimacy in your relationships, right? How painful is it? Think about what relationships you have in your life where you don't feel known, right? You feel like either it's all about the other person or the other person has a misperception of you. We see a lot on the internet now saying, let them misunderstand you. And I get that. But I don't want you behaving in ways that are encouraging people to misunderstand or not know you, right? So we're talking about two different things. Other things that happen when we live in this fear of rejection is that it's so bad for our self-worth, right? We're reinforcing the idea that there are certain parts of ourself that we should keep hidden, that we should, go along to get along, even if we don't agree with what is going on. So eventually that really wears away at your self-esteem, that behavior. It also creates anxiety because think about the state of hypervigilance that we have to be in to be trying to avoid rejection at any cost, at all turns. Correct. That's anxiety provoking. So this fear, as I was saying before, like in the dating situation with that client, you can see that she wasn't making her best dating decision because she was doing it from this one-down position, which is exactly what you're in if you're going through life, fearing rejection more than being interested in the truth of what is happening. How is that person really feeling? How do you really feel? So as always, I say, let's start inward and then move out. Right? This is how we can start to overcome that. But we have to have a deeper understanding. And I'll include a few questions for you to answer in the guide that goes along with this episode. Just go to terricole.com/guide. Because we really have to go in to go out, to try to understand what is your own, we could say rejection blueprint, right? Why do you, besides all of the human aspects that I've already talked about. But why else? Is it what you saw in your life? Did you have a parent who was like this? Did you have a devastating rejection and now you just live your life trying to avoid it? There are lots of different reasons that you may have to be this way. And the more you understand it, the easier it is to change that behavior, which of course is what we want to do. So, overcoming this fear, what happens in our lives when we do it? Well, a lot of times we have this fearful narrative running in our mind about things that haven't even happened, which again, there's all this anticipatory planning that goes into trying to avoid rejection. But think about the stories. You're like, oh my God, if this person rejects me, then that will happen, and then I'll be humiliated, and then I'll be embarrassed. A lot of times, we're going through the entire experience of something that has not happened, right? It's only happened in our fear mind. So with my therapy clients, I would always say, listen, how about we just try to manage that thing one time if it actually happens, right? Have faith. You are resilient enough. But that negative, fearful, catastrophic voice and narrative is one that you really have to pay attention to, because we need to not have that be the thing that is running our behaviors in life and that are super informing our decisions. Another thing to get real with is that you are not that fragile, right? Your relationships are not that fragile. So it's okay for you to disagree with someone or set a limit with someone or set boundaries with someone. And even though the child within, so much of the time, the fear we have when it comes to initially getting good at setting boundaries is that we have a fear of being abandoned, right? We have this fear of being rejected, but it's such an amplified fear for many of us and many of my therapy clients that I know that it's the child within who is really driving that fear, right? It's more about them than it is about the adult you, because if we look at the adult you and what you've experienced and what you've accomplished and how incredibly resilient you are, you know that you'll be okay if you get rejected by someone, by a job, by something, right? We've all survived it before. So I feel like tapping into the child within, that's really who's scared to death, because the adult you has been through this and more. And just remind yourself that you're not that fragile, that you are resilient, and that your relationships are not that fragile. And if they are that fragile, they are likely built on your self-abandonment, meaning that if you don't continue to self-abandon, the relationship may go away. And I have to say that has to be okay. It has to be okay, because any relationship that's built on your self-abandonment is not a healthy relationship for you, right? It's not doing you a service, and it's certainly not doing the relationship a service. So what else can you do to raise your awareness around when fear is in the driver's seat of your life, when this fear of rejection? So part of it is really taking a little bit of an inventory. In what relationships does this fear of rejection come up the most for you? Is it romantic relationships? Is it work stuff? Is it colleague stuff? Is it compare and despair on the internet stuff? We're going to use the 3 cues for clarity, which I will include in the guide, which you can get at terricole.com/guide, to help you. Who does this person remind me of? Where have I felt like this before? And how or why is this behavioral dynamic familiar to me? Those are the 3 cues for clarity, which can help you determine if you are having a transference, which would make sense, which means you might be more sensitive to rejection from your boss if you had a very rejecting and cold parent. So you might be having that experience because your boss reminds you of that parent. Make sense? All right. So we also want to go back and find evidence of the times when you have asserted yourself and that everything has worked out and that it's been okay, right? It's so easy. Fear, especially fear of stuff we haven't done, right? It paints this very gory picture of like the terrible things that could happen. But I want you to be clear about the times when you have asserted yourself and it's been just fine, right? Because I know you have evidence of that in your life too. It's just that when we're in a state of fear, it's hard to reach for that. So there's going to be a few things that you put on you could put it in your notes app in your phone of like what to do when that's happening. Another thing that can be helpful for you, and this is just a technique that my mother taught me when I swear I think I was in 3rd grade. I just call it going down the what if highway, where you say to yourself, oh my gosh, I feel like this person is stepping away. And, like my client was saying about that person she was starting to text with. If I were to walk her down the what if highway, I would have said, okay, so what if they are stepping away? Well, then I'm going to feel bad. Okay. Then what? Well, then I'm going to feel sad that I didn't get a chance to get to know them. Okay. Well, then what? Well, then I'm going to feel rejected and embarrassed. Okay. Then what? And then the answer is, then nothing. Then life goes on. Then you swipe left or right on the next person. Then the sun still comes up tomorrow. And I think that the what if, walking down the what if highway and asking yourself, okay, then what? Then what? Then what? On these things that feel catastrophic, help us to see they're not. Help us to get a perspective on what's really happening. Because even in terrible case scenarios, unless it's going to actually kill you, the sun is going to come up tomorrow and you're going to get through whatever the thing is that you fear. And we also have to look at the cost of not doing it, of not saying the thing, of not telling the truth, right? Because there's a huge cost to that too, as I was talking about before, the not being known, which is enormous and incredibly painful. Another thing to think about is you have to prioritize your relationship with yourself over that fear of rejection. Like, get used to being uncomfortable a little bit. It's all right. Right. You're literally not going to crumble. And I feel like, especially as HFCs, a lot of times, at least for me, the moment I would feel a feeling I didn't like, I would go into action. I would want to do something. I would want to change something. I would want to get away from that feeling is really what I wanted to do. So I want you to really prioritize your relationship with yourself over prioritizing that fear of rejection. Because when we really put it in its place and go, you know what? I'm going to be okay. If I get rejected, I'm going to be okay. It gives us the power to make better decisions for ourselves, to really talk true and to be true to ourselves, because we're the only one who can, right? When you think about it, when you are your authentic self, talking true, as I like to say, the right people and circumstances will find you, right? Because if you are sort of acting as if and placating and walking on eggshells, that's not you, right? That's you managing other people's feelings, attempting to manage or control other people's feelings or thoughts or judgments of you. And it's absolutely exhausting. But if we have to do that in relationships, we really have to question, are we in the right relationships? Does that make sense? All right, well, I want to hear from you guys. Was this helpful? Have you been suffering from a fear of rejection? Did this reframe you in any way? And you guys, if you like this conversation, if you like this style of interacting, I really want to invite you to check out my new membership, TCM, Terri Cole membership. Go to terricole.com/TCM. I think you guys will love it. We meet every week. We do Q&As every week. I have special guests come in. You can start for as little as $59 US a month. And if you pay in full, you get 2 months for free. This is a perfect way to start the year off right. So TCM, terricole.com/TCM. In the meantime, I hope you have the most amazing week. I hope this episode helped you. And as always, take care of you.